Swamniti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Bhaktivinode Thakur ki Jai. So today we will study a little bit about Bhaktivinode Thakur's life history, and especially we will study certain specific points about his challenges also in his life from his book Swalikhita Jivani literature. And I'm just finding some picture to the family of Bhaktivinode Thakur. I want to start with that. So here's the picture of the family. Here is Bhaktivinode Thakur here. There are many interesting photos of Bhaktivinode Thakur. Okay. Some of the pictures are very popular and some of them are not. So this is one of the popular pictures of Bhaktivinode Thakur with his beard and with the japamala. And this is a picture of Bhaktivinode Thakur as Assistant District Magistrate. And this is another picture of Bhaktivinode Thakur. Later years. This is with his family, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is here. And this is also him dressed in the district magistrate attire. This one also. Okay, so let's begin with offering our obeisances to this great Acharya, Srila Bhaktivinode Thakur. Bhaktivinode Thakur was very exemplary in his preaching activities. He used innovative preaching methods, and he never gave up in doing what Srila Prabhupada recommends, injecting into the dull minds of the materialistic civilization this philosophy of Krishna consciousness in an intelligent manner. Bhaktivinode Thakur was the 11th son. Was he 11th or the 7th? I forget. Son, I think it was 7th, right? 7th son, yes. Bhaktivinode Thakur was the 7th son of his father, Raja Krishnananda Datta. He was born in a Datta family, and Datta is obviously not Vaishnava. It's actually a Shakta and Daiva, like Devi worshippers. There is a book called The Seventh Goswami, and it's about Bhaktivinode Thakur, written by Rupa Vilas Prabhu, like that. So just looking at the Hare Krishna movement, if you take out Bhaktivinode Thakur, we would not see much of the Hare Krishna movement. He was very influential, very important Acharya in our Sampradaya. In 1838, he was born, as his name was Kedarnath Datta. And he was born in very opulent circumstances. Biranagar, that was it was in West Bengal in the district of Nadia. And he was the father of Bhaktivinode Thakur was actually a great devotee of Lord Nityananda. Although Bhaktivinode Thakur didn't grow up in the Vaishnava environment, he was known as like the father of Bhaktivinode Thakur was very well known as Nityananda Bhakta, and he was also called Daitya Kuler Prahalada. Prahalad in the family of non-devotees. He was called because he was a Nityananda devotee. And the family of Bhaktivinode Thakur, because they were worshipping Devi, they didn't appreciate so much Vaishnavas or Vaishnava culture or something. So they would call him Daitya Kuler Prahalad. The father was called like that. So, and Bhaktivinode Thakur's childhood, he spent in his maternal grandfather's house. And it was a very opulent setup sitting there. And he got very good education. His primary education was actually by the education school itself was started by the grandmother. So he went to that same school. Later on, he also went to Krsna, which the king of Nadia had started that school education system. And he started attending the English school in Krsna. So then his brother, Bhaktivinode Thakur's brother, passes away because of cholera. And since then, Bhaktivinode Thakur left going to that school. When Bhaktivinode Thakur was 11 years old, very young boy, his father passes away. And basically, due to that, the economic situation of that family drastically changes overnight. And all the property that was actually given, all the grant of the lands that was given from the government, it changes, and it changes hands basically. And the grandmother was taking care of him, and they didn't get any property, and it basically fell into poverty. So only when he was just 12 years old, back then they would get children married, right? So 1850 that was, and he was just 12 years old. And Bhaktivinode Thakur's mother, he wanted to arrange his marriage with a 5-year-old girl, Madhusudan Mitra Mahasya. It was, I think, a relative of the mother of Bhaktivinode Thakur. So the father of this girl was in a well-educated family background like that. So Kedarnath Datta was assisting, Bhaktivinode Thakur was, as a boy, was assisting the uncle to help publishing newspapers, etc. Then, 18, like when Bhaktivinode Thakur became 18, he entered college. And there was a lot of cultural pressures. First thing is losing a father at 11, and then the families being very allergic to Vaishnavism and vegetarianism. And Bhaktivinode Thakur used to eat meat, and it is written in the Swalikhita Jivani how Bhaktivinode Thakur actually had difficulty to overcome when he went to the Vaishnava Gosais for a health checkup, and they told him that if you stop eating meat, then your health will be good, because he was very young and he already started having health issues, and he was told to give up eating meat. But it became a difficulty for him to do that. And then he was avoiding going to this Vaishnavas because he knew that they'll ask him to give up meat. So Bhaktivinode Thakur explains how that was a little bit of a challenge for him. So when he became 18 again, Bhaktivinode Thakur went back to college, and he studied English and Bengali extensively. And he studied English literature, and he became very good orator, very good speaker. And he, in fact, became one of the orators in the British Parliament, which is very rare because British people, they didn't easily trust Indian leaders or, people. In fact, Bhaktivinode Thakur was one of the prominent like the Britishers trusted Bhaktivinode Thakur so much, that one of the top positions, there were only 3 people and only 1 Indian, and that was Bhaktivinode Thakur, who was given the district magistrate position later. And Bhaktivinode Thakur was, this is also in the Swalikhita Jivani, means the autobiography of Bhaktivinode Thakur, that he was very much influenced and impressed by Christian theology. He was very much, he got very absorbed, and he got very interested in Christian theology. And he considered that Christian theology was more interesting and less offensive than, like, say, Hindu monoism. Especially, he also had studied a little bit of Advaita Vada from Shankaracharya, and he would compare, writings of different people, like in Christian, who were Christian theologians, such as Theodore Parker, Emerson, Newman. These were all different writers of that time. And of course, because of the British Indian, there was something called the British Indian Society, and Bhaktivinode Thakur was so well researched that he gave a lecture about the evolution of matter through the material mode of goodness, like that. So he had a very scholastic life, and he studied both Indian culture and Christian culture. So, today I wanted to discuss about the challenges that Bhaktivinode Thakur faced. Besides losing the father at 11 and going through such a poverty, he never lost that vision to study and learn, and that was always his part of his life. And when Bhaktivinode Thakur returned after his college, when he comes back to the village, he actually saw that one cholera had come, and there was an epidemic in the whole village, and everybody, most of his relatives, everybody was dead. And then he basically returned to Kolkata with only 2 surviving members of his family. One was his mother and one was his grandmother. Grandmother and mother, these were the only 2 people that survived the epidemic. And then because of the wish, the grandfather had a desire that he should travel to different states of different temples in Orissa. So he was fulfilling that. And then he was also a grihastha. Bhaktivinode Thakur was himself a grihastha, and he was not so interested in money making. He was an intellectual, and he struggled very much with the dishonesty that was around at that time. And he also thought that doing business would mean that there would be a necessary dishonesty. So he didn't want to get into doing business and etc. He wanted to actually be a school teacher. And he went in Orissa, he went and started teaching English in one village called Kendrapara. And then after that, he went to Puri, and then he passed other higher examinations. So he was always very much about education. And then in Cuttack, he got job, and then he became a headmaster in Medinapur, like that, and then all the government authorities actually noticed that how dedicated he was in this field of education, and like that, and then they recognized him very much. Then he had his first son. In 1860, he had his first son. I mean, back then, marriage was like a whole. Imagine in this kind of situations, losing relatives for epidemic, and then it was real, like we saw in the pandemic time now, how many people died. So you can imagine a epidemic in those days where there were no medicines and there were not this kind of hospitals. So it lost everyone. So children, having children was one of the great things also what Bhaktivinode Thakur did, right? But the first son, when he was born, look at that fate. Achyutananda was his name, the first son's name. At the time of the delivery itself, the wife passes away. The first wife passes away with the first birth of the child. Then he marries Bhagavati Devi. Bhagavati Devi is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's mother. And if you come to Mayapur, in Yogapeeth, there is actually a samadhi of Bhagavati Devi under the deity of Nrsimhadev and Gaurnitai. So he basically started connecting with all the temples, and his teachings became more and more prominent, and he was headmaster, and that was recognized by the government. And he could see that people in general were very messed up about religion. So slowly, after studying Christianity and other things, when he started studying Gaudiya Vaishnavism, he got so convinced, and he thought how people are taking religion so cheaply. And until he found our Goswami's teachings, etc., he had not found that actual basis. And once he found it, he became one of the prominent, unique, important acharyas who would establish the whole teaching of Mahaprabhu everywhere. And then he would write poetry. He wrote more than 100 books. Of course, at that time, the Gaudiya Vaishnavam philosophy was not presented properly. So Bhaktivinode Thakur would had the responsibility to represent the Goswami's teachings in the proper way, in a way that is accepted, because back then were all like really misrepresented. It was really taken cheaply. Aul Baul and Gopi Baba, and the whole Krishna consciousness movement back then was misunderstood heavily. And so he experienced heavy challenges, really intense challenges. Then after when he in 1861, he became a deputy district magistrate, and he specifically requested to come to Mayapur area here in Swarupganj area. And then there was so much corruption among the government officers, etc. And he fought all that, and he became a collector officer. And then he opened a organization called Bhratri Samaj. So he wrote a book also called Our Wants. And then he composed, there is still the house in Surabhikunj, the house of Bhaktivinode Thakur. And then he composed several poems. Then he had a lot of difficulties, actually. For example, with the government, with the people around, and pushing the mission and the movement, the message of the movement. And then one of the son gets mad, becomes mad and becomes crazy, and then comes back home, and he had to take care of that son also. And there was a rule in Bhaktivinode Thakur's house that he had a press. He opened a press to publish books. Whoever lived in that house and wanted to eat, they had to work in the press. Man, woman, didn't matter. If you don't work in that press, then you can't eat in that house. That was a rule Bhaktivinode Thakur had established. So he became the highest ranking officer, especially as an Indian. It was not very common. So it was not common that government would give in the British government for an Indian person to have such a high position. And then he would study Srimad Bhagavatam, very rigorously. And I think at one point he got transferred when the second son was born. The second son was Radhika Prasad. And in that time, in those times, there is all the stories about ghosts and all. There's this ghost who had the power to influence the minds of the people. And all these things were happening. And then he actually went and he convinced one of the local brahmanas to go and read Srimad Bhagavatam under the tree, day and night. That was a point. He wasn't reading, he was telling the brahmana to go and read. And then after reading that Bhagavatam under that tree, which was haunted by the ghost, and everybody was suffering because of that, the tree broke into pieces. And then everybody got more faith in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in spite of all his personal difficulties, he writes in that Swalikita Jivani how much he had to face his personal difficulties. Still, he never gave up. Once he found that mission, he was keeping going. And then there was one guy, he was like a mystical guy. He used to give a lot of trouble to Bhaktivinode Thakur. He was warned, Bhaktivinode Thakur was warned not to interfere with this guy because he was doing black magic and tantra, and he was very offensive also to like Lord Jagannath, and he was like, oh, what is Jagannath? It's just a piece of wood and all that. So Bhaktivinode Thakur actually arrested this guy with his authority and power because he used to mislead people. Then he was fearless. Bhaktivinode Thakur was fearless, and he the whole trial that took this tantric guy to court, it lasted for like 18 days. And this tantric was doing all kinds of horrible mantras and all, and some of the family members were suffering. What's the name? Bhaktivinode Thakur's daughter actually dies. She becomes so serious and dies because on the 6th day of the trial, it's like Mahabharata war, it's like 18 days, 18 days of Mahabharata war, like that. Bhaktivinode Thakur had to fight for 18 days against this vicious tantric guy. And then he lost. I don't think the daughter died, actually. She almost died. She didn't die because she almost died, but she got very sick. And then even Bhaktivinode Thakur was getting sick and everything. Then he didn't give up. He said, let us all die, but this rascal must learn his lesson. So that was the determination of Bhaktivinode Thakur, and nothing could defeat him. So even though this fight happened for 18 days, and somehow or another, what happened was Bhaktivinoda Thakur pronounced the man guilty, and then he got the sentence of 18 months for political conspiracy. Then when this guy, tantric guy, went to jail, the medical officer in the jail, he cut off the hair of that guy, and then all this mystic power and all went away because the power of this guy was in the hair. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur won that, and not only just won that case, but he actually won the hearts of everyone and reinstalled faith in everybody. And because this guy actually, this guy, the tantric, had to be taken in a stretchers because he was not eating during the trial. He was controlling all his powers and everything, and he was trying to harm Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the family so much. And finally, he took poison and he dies. This guy just dies. So there is actually some movie and all they made about Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his life, and it's very very descriptive of all the challenges that he went through, but he wouldn't give up. He had so much faith, so much faith. So yeah, I mean, there is many more things about his literary work. There's so much about his prominent teaching strategies, preaching strategies, and his request to Mahavishnu, to Krishna, to send a ray of Vishnu as the son, after which Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born. But what we need to remember is, besides being the foremost of scholars and acharyas, he also had his share of material difficulties in married life and professional life, in many regards. And that sets an even like I said, like earlier years, he had difficulty to even give up meat eating. So even those kind of challenges he had. So that's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs are so realistic and so relevant for us. We can actually see the emotions depending, like Gopinath Mama Nivedana Shuno. In that song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur expresses how everything belongs to Krishna, and all those feelings and emotions are so real. Although he is not an ordinary person, he's actually a Manjari from the spiritual world. He came to show how to live life even amidst the challenges and difficulties in life. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he also published a book called Sajjana Toshani, the Vaishnava Journal. And that is very interesting. There's a whole series about it if you're interested to read. What else? Let me see. Yeah, I mean, so many. He published Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita, Vaishnava Siddhantamala, Prema Pradipa Manashiksha is also Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He did so much. It's just amazing for one human being with so many difficulties, with such a big family, to do such work. Oh, this is another one. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's son, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's sons got skin disease, and then Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj told to lie down and the birth side of Mahaprabhu in the night, and then they all went and lied down, and the next day morning they all got up and they were all cured. Like that, so many miracle stories were happening in Mayapur Dham, Mahaprabhu's birthplace. When Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj recognized that this is only where Mahaprabhu was born, so many miracles happened at that time when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was establishing the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. So that's our main theme today. But I don't know what point touched you the most about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The discussion for today would be, amidst challenges, how to dedicate ourselves, amidst all the difficulties we have, all the responsibilities we have, how we can take inspiration from the life and history of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his teachings to offer everything to Krishna, and to not give to the evil mind's plans. So that is a discussion today. And if you like, I can go off from the live and we can have a very private, comfortable discussion. Let me know. Any questions or comments that can go on recording mode, please ask. Or if you want to add some points, any comments.
How many religions he knew? Christianity and?
He studied Christianity, and he also studied Shankaracharya philosophy. I am not 100% sure what all the religions, I don't know if they're all named, what all he studied, but he did study different religions until he came to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and then he got convinced. Let me see if I can find a text. I haven't in detail read it, but I will see. Christianity, definitely. And he was not only just studying Christianity, he was very impressed by it. But he did study other religions. It's just inconceivable how he was doing so many amazing things. Bhaktisiddhanta was no less. At 5 years, Bhaktisiddhanta was only 7 years old or 5 years old. I think he was in class 5. Then he invented a new mathematical system, Bhaktisiddhanta, a new method of shorthand, Bikanto. Like that, he invented a new system and all. And then like that, he was studying mathematics and astrology and everything. He was so expert. I don't find all the names of the religions, but it does say that he studied several religions and he was very much impressed by Christianity, and he was even seriously wanting to follow. And he found it to be more, he found Christianity to be more compassionate and more interesting than Shankara's teachings. That's what it says here.
Thank you.
They published a book recently, actually. This Bhaktivinode Thakur Swajivani Likhit, Swalikita Jivani. They published it. I don't know where we can find it, but I remember my Guru Maharaj, they offered that to my Guru Maharaj during the ILS time. After a lot of research, they came out with that book. 100 years of research. It was released in Bengali.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I'm just so inspired by him because later in his life he used to just have a short amount of rest time at night, and he wrote so many songs. So he never wasted a moment. It's just so inspiring how he was so dedicated at writing and taking care of his family and working, and just so admirable.
Yeah, in his advanced age, his health was really bad, but that didn't stop him from all the service that he did. He used to come here in Mayapur, and there is a Pushpa Samadhi here of Bhaktivinode Thakur. The actual Samadhi is there in Surabhi Kunj, and here in Mayapur, there is Pushpa Samadhi, where he used to come because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was running the Gaudiya Math from here. Bhaktivinode Thakur would come here and sit and chant and write, and such an empowered soul, huh? Like nothing stopped him from nothing, not own difficulties, not family difficulties, not losing everybody in the family, not all the poverty, not those government people who are all corrupted and so much difficulty, not the tantric guy who wanted to kill him and the family. Nothing stopped him. So that's the spirit that I took, that nothing should stop me from wanting to serve Krishna, serve Guru. Nothing. Nothing. Even my own mind or others, nothing should be the obstacle. Bhaktivinode Thakur says life is like a Kamala Dalajala. It's like a water droplet on the lotus flower. So it's like that, it will be gone. In a second, life will be over. I mean, I was thinking how I complain, oh, I have this responsibility and that, and crib about this and that. But, you know, Bhaktivinode Thakur would get up at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Actually, there is this little bhajan kuti, like a little place in Surabhi Kunj, where he used to wake up. He was a district magistrate role. He had to go early in the morning. Just for him, they put a railway station so that he could go to Krishna Nagar from there. And before that, he'll wake up so early, chant his rounds, and then he'll sit and write, and then go to his district magistrate work with all those children at home. I showed you the picture of the family here, with all the children to feed and take care, and one son mad and who came back and he had to care for him also, and running the press also. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, I complain about being overwhelmed, you know. It's the faith, you know. When we are empowered, Krishna works through us. And Bhaktivinode Thakur's life was, I don't know, I feel it was more intense, more. It's not like sannyasis' lives that, oh, it's over, you know, they don't have family, they don't have anything, and they renounced. He had everything, he had to deal with everything. And yet he never complained and would sleep very little and continued furthering the mission of Lord Chaitanya. Without these acharyas like this, where would we be? You know, we will be completely lost. And be so reputable and respected in the government, you know. He showed us that we don't have to run away from family life and difficulties and everything. Even amidst that, your bhakti can actually come out even more. That was his example. Bhakti is not dependent on your life and circumstance. And sometimes we want no situation to be perfect. I want to be in the perfect home. The people should be supportive in the home. And I need to be in a good mood. I should not be triggered by anybody. All these people are disturbance. We have that mentality, and Bhaktivinode Thakur shows the exact opposite. The whole world can be against you, but if you want to serve Krishna, there's nothing can stop us. Nothing. I like those little, there are shelves in his room in Surabhi Kunj, where he used to keep all his books and all. And there's a table where he used to work and write so many books. Yes, Taruni Radha.
I was, my thoughts are like going to, first and foremost, I'm really grateful to you for bringing up these aspects which I never knew. I always liked Bhaktivinode Thakur, like kind of being a family person, right? He was also a family person, and how inspiring he was. But the point that you have brought today is like outstanding. Yeah. Like, you know, how you said, despite having so much things going on in the house, he never gave up. Like nothing material stopped him from performing his bhakti. That itself is like so nice, right? I mean, it's very inspiring from health, family, kids. Despite all these things, how he went steadfast, you know, that is one thing. And secondly, I was thinking like how his kids, when that one child went like past away, like the child you were talking with the daughter, it's almost like similar to that Ganga Devi, where she's like literally putting all the kids who were boys who were born before Bhishma Dev, right, in the Ganga. She will submerge them, correct? So I was thinking, being an eternal associate of the Lord, all those kids, they just had little, perhaps very little, something karmic or some Krishna's arrangement. So these great souls, they do not view death like the way we view their attachment. Is like very different, because they know that the soul is like now getting, the fruitive activities or whatever which was present, it's done, and then it's going back to its eternal home abode. Being an associate of a great person itself, one becomes a recipient of mercy. Imagine being the son of such a great Nitya Siddha Bhakta like Bhaktivinode Thakur. So I was thinking from that angle, like those souls have gone back. So because I have this tendency to like get very morose when I think like about death of kids and things like that. So I was thinking like it should be a happy occasion to think about that they go back. They don't have to suffer this material world for long. So that way I was thinking. I like to hear your comments about that, Mataji, about the second point that I spoke. In one sense, Krishna has also done that to range for us to say, like, see, despite all the way the kids, something and all happened, yet he never gave up. How much more steadfast should you be? Because I mean, your life, it's not like the difficulties are not as much as what Bhaktivinode Thakur Maharaj experienced. So one sense it's that, but the other way, instead of getting really morose and depressed, thinking how it must have been for him, like losing the kid and all that, right? Or the child becoming mad. So I was just thinking this a little higher way, like how Krishna must have arranged these souls to just come there for just some small thing, and then they get the association of such a great Vaishnava, and then they're all liberated, they all go back. So I was thinking from that sense, just to calm myself down. So I'd like to hear your comments.
Wait, first and foremost, he's not an ordinary person. He is actually a person who has just come to show us how you can, with bhakti, you can fight all these obstacles and difficulties. So it's, the strength that he had was very spiritual. So spiritual strength prevails, And on another level, it's like the deep understanding of all these things that happens to me is not, it has nothing to do with my relationship with Krishna, and we don't give up, we just keep going. I mean, that's my main lesson from it, to not give up, to get back up, move on, keep moving, to not look back, to not be in regret, not to live in tamaguna. This should not happen, that should not have happened, but to keep furthering the mission. And that's another thing about Bhaktivinode Thakur, that he was missionary, right? I mean, the way he called for Bhaktivinode Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur to come, it's very very realized about what's the purpose of life, what's the goal of life, and to not give importance to any other matter but the preaching of Lord Chaitanya, to propagate, to propound Lord Chaitanya's teachings, and to give literally like life and soul. Sometimes I think of Dadichi Muni, and I think that it's so much easier to just give my bones away and just sacrifice, but then to live like Bhaktivinode Thakur, every single day giving your blood and your soul, every single minute to Krishna, and chanting with them, chanting with that mood of wanting to be empowered to preach. It's an example of, like you said, as a Grihastha devotee. I also always felt very inspired by Bhaktivinode Thakur. I used to have like dreams of him telling me to like write, and I remember my Guru Maharaj also telling me that I should take that instruction seriously. So Bhaktivinode Thakur is very reciprocative. If you go to his samadhi like that, you'll feel like instructions. He's very, very live, very, very personal. And I think his personality type was also like, he was like an achiever, never give up, kind of like type 3, keep doing and always protecting the image of the mission. So he used all his natures to, all the positive traits of that can be seen that he was doing it for the movement as a representative of the movement, like that. I think the main thing we can learn from this is our own lives. What are the areas of my life where I'm lamenting? What do I need to kind of keep aside? And what is it that we know, some of us know what we need to be doing to progress further. We know how we need to contribute to the movement, how we should serve, we know, but sometimes we are a little bit stuck. So Bhaktivinode Thakur's example can unstuck us. Just by even remembering him, we can feel unstuck.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for the wonderful discussion. So I'm just curious to know that you said that he is a Manjari and from spiritual world. So just curious, how can a soul like him have inclination towards meat eating or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, this is an example just to show that these things are normal. When we take human birth, these things are possible and it's normal. It's not a big deal. First of all, what is meat? We have to go even beyond that understanding about the meat thing that, there are places like in Ahobilam and all, they offer meat to Nrsingadev. And even to Durga Devi, they offer bali, they offer meat. Even in some of the yagyas, in Vaishnav yagyas, they have to offer meat in order to please the Lord, like that. So
I didn't
I'm
know
just
about nursing. They offer, because I know
yeah,
they offer it to
there is
Devi.
Randa Berunda.
So,
There is Randa Berunda Narsimha, and they offer blood and animal and everything. Offering is done to him. What I'm saying is, meat eating is a Vedic thing. Meat eating is, that traditionally there were Kshatriyas who would eat meat and everything. So, I mean, nowadays we made the whole meat eating thing as a, I don't know, we see it as very black and white, but there are Vedic procedures for people if they want to eat meat. And there are deities where meat is offered. Of course, it's not for us to follow, but I'm just saying that it's not such a big deal that we make it. And he was just playing the role of a human that can have these challenges but can overcome, like that.
yeah, okay. Thank you, Mataji. So, Mataji, if like you told Kshatriyas, they also used to eat meat. So, didn't they get any reaction if somebody eat meat following the Vedic principles, so they don't get any reaction? Because Kali Yuga, I've heard everything is prohibited. They can't do proper yagya, they can't do proper offering. So, it's not recommended.
Yeah. I mean, you said, what did you say? Will they get, what did you say?
So
Reaction. So
yeah,
the
any
point
reaction.
is there's always a price to pay for anything, right? If I have 10,000 rupees, they say you can't have the money also, and then you can buy also. If I want to buy something, I have to spend that 10,000 rupees to say you want to buy a TV or something. You can't have 10,000 rupees and have the TV. You have to sacrifice the 10,000 to have the TV. So similarly, you may have done Vedic rituals, which means, there is a cost. You have to do this kind of thing, and then you can afford to eat it. So if it was done properly, then there was a price. There's always a price. Nowadays, there is consequences. That's all. That's the difference. Traditionally, there was a price, and nowadays there is consequences.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. It makes sense.
Consequences of not following properly, and consequences of just doing it without proper knowledge. any moment you feel that I should stop the live and we want to like go back to our meeting format for the last few minutes, we can do that. So you please let me know. Any other thoughts about what impressed you the most about Bhaktivinode Thakur?
Hare Krishna. Actually, I just joined. I just joined when you finished talking about Bhaktivinode Thakur, and I just saw that you had his family photo up there. Any information on the rest of his family members? And I know we know about Bhakti Siddhant Thakur, but what about the rest of the family members? What were they like? Were they into Krishna consciousness?
Well, I said in the talk that there was a rule that anybody who lived in the house, they had to serve in the press, in the printing press. So they all had to do certain activities. But besides Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there was also the sister, I think, in that picture. This, she was a devotee, but I mean, it's similar to Prabhupada. No, he had many children, but it's not like they became devotees. Bhakti Siddhanta was the main devotee figure. I don't know if probably it was this sister. She looks quite bright, no?
Where is Bhakti Siddhant Thakur? Is he the one sitting on the top left? Yeah, okay, yeah, that's good.
And Bhagavati Devi Samadhi is here in Yoga Peeth.
Okay.
A lot of kids.
So what year was this then? 19...
I mean, the first son was born 1961, like that. So this
Okay.
picture, I mean, I don't know what date that is.
Mm. So do we have a knowledge of what's happened to the rest of the children? Are they around, or maybe the grandkids around?
I am not sure.
Just
I was
curious.
saying about one of the child went mad and things like that, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to take care of that son for all life. But there is no information of either of them becoming devotees, and except Bhakti Siddhanta, there is not like that kind. Probably they just remained in their own family lives like that, but they were not connected to the sampradaya like that.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of similar to, I'm thinking Bhakti Prabhupada also, right? Prabhupada, everybody thought, I mean, Prabhupada's children, right? So it must be very special, but it didn't exactly turn out like that. One of the sons went and put a case in the court saying my father was a businessman. His whole ISKCON was just a business, actually, but belongs to me, He lost the case, by the way. So sometimes it's like that. There's no guarantee. Wow. There's no guarantee.
I see.
Prabhupada used to say, not to the devotee, the disciples, that you are my children, because the devotees were very interested to know about biological children and all. Prabhupada was not very hopeful about them. And he didn't want to even, then of course one of the sons put the case against ISKCON and they had to fight and everything.
We had one of Prabhupada's relatives visited our Calgary temple beginning of this year. No, was it last year, I believe, and I have a picture. And that was interesting. But I don't know how he was related, but he did have that looks of Prabhupada, and everybody was like, oh, he's Prabhupada's relative. So that was interesting.
Yeah. I guess once Prabhupada became very famous and popular, it was easier for them to like be inspired, etc.
Right.
I guess that again emphasizes another point that our who is our father, our Guru Maharaj, who is our grandfather, Srila Prabhupada. Again and again, the Diksha line is emphasized more than the lineage, like biological, seminal lineage. Our Sampradaya is about that, because we usually, Indians especially, we have this conditioning a little bit. We give very much prominence to the blood, the DNA, like the Dhritarashtra, my son Duryodhan, my son Duryodhan. Because of the blood relation, we're very much into that. So we are always very interested in, the whole Indian culture is like that, very much about biology. When a king is there, did the king get a son? Did the king get a son? So everything was about that. The emphasis is so high. But the beauty of Krishna consciousness and Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy and Gaudiya Vaishnava parampara is not seminal. It's not about that. It's actually about following the Guru's instruction and being connected to the Sampradaya and recognizing that my spiritual master is my spiritual father and Srila Prabhupada is my grandfather. This is my real family. It's a very important distinction to make in order to progress in our life. Because all this familial thing is like a snake with his head up. Anytime it can be destroyed, right? There are divorces can happen, people can die, all that. But when you're connected to the Sampradaya, when you're connected to the parampara, then it cannot get disconnected. There is no betrayal when we are connected to the right parampara. So I think all these points also, like what you brought up, how can Bhaktivinode Thakur's sons not become pure devotees? Or why did Prabhupada's children put case against ISKCON itself and they didn't become pure devotees? Because the emphasis is not on the seminal biological lineage. It's on the instruction based. It's the Diksha based. Even there is a Nityananda Vamsha, Advaita Vamsha. There are all the family lineage of different people coming down in those lines. There are still people around here. But Prabhupada did not recommend us to go too much into those things. It's more about following instructions. I mean, most of us have American gurus, right? Most of us have gurus who are American. They don't even have Indian DNA in them. But that's the best that we can have at this point in Kali Yuga. It doesn't get better than that. And so it is not dependent on the DNA aspect of. Some people are like that a little bit. They want only Indian guru. They're a little bit still in that. Some people prefer like that. They want only Indian guru. They don't want foreign guru like that. But some of our gurus, like I'm thinking of my Guru Maharaj, he's so much more traditional than many Indians. So it's about the culture. Do you remember his name, Sarvamangala?
No, actually, I don't. I can get the name for you, find out. I don't remember now. But
Okay. I mean, I know that there was a son, one of the sons, not the one who put the case, another son, many years ago, he passed away a few years ago, and I'd seen him also. He had come to Kolkata like that for some program, and his daughter also was a devotee like that. So, there is some thing, but again, Prabhupada didn't emphasize that we should, he didn't let us go into the association of the like the Nityananda Vamsha and or going into family tree was not so. He wasn't so. The Siddhanta also, the siblings like that, there is no information about that either. And I mean, Bhakti Siddhanta, forget about the siblings, but even his disciples fought like anything. And that's when Prabhupada went and established ISKCON. So both ways it can happen. I mean, but what I'm meaning to say here is it's not new. From the time immemorial and from the beginning of time, there have been conflicts. There has been, Brahma has so many children. He has Swayambhu Manu, he has Daksha, Shiva, Narada, Kumaras. They are all children, right? They are all children only, but they all had conflicts amongst themselves. For example, Shiva and Daksha, they had a conflict. Because the whole insult story and the sati and committing suicide story and Shiva cutting the head of Daksha and putting a goat head, that's between the brothers, okay. And then Narada and Daksha also had troubles because they were Narada converted all Daksha's sons into brahmacharis and they didn't want to create progeny. So there are a lot of conflicts, you can say, from time immemorial. there have been differences, father and son, even between father and son or between siblings. So it's not a new thing. It's the way of the world, I suppose.
And in this context, I just had a point. It makes sense, right? That expecting that son of a doctor should become doctor, son of engineer should become engineer. Not every son of the doctor becomes doctor. He may influence, he may make them think towards that goal, but he may not. Again, especially what to speak of pure devotional service. We cannot expect every son of the pure devotee to become pure devotee. It depends on their goal. The Bhaktivinode Thakur's example, the way he took off when he took Krishna consciousness and did accomplish so many things, reminded me this verse, Gita 2.41. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched.
Yeah.
So faith, the firm faith, like if one is even in medical profession, right? If one is very convinced about the goal and if he's very passionate to do it, like he can become best doctor. And if he has faith that this profession will, whatever the desire he has, will heal the people. If he has that faith, firm faith. Pure devotion also, I feel like because we vary in different degrees of faith, we become irresolute because our faith is not firm. We have still faith in other areas, like especially material world, that this will also give me eternal happiness. Somewhat like I feel like I'm fooling myself, feeding the same enjoying propensities that I have been feeding all these years. It's unconscious sometimes and it's conscious. So these days it's conscious because of Enneagram, of course. But yeah, it has been unconscious all these years. Unconsciously, I have been feeding the wrong propensities, even after Krishna consciousness, wrong propensities of wanting to enjoy at subtle level, especially. So yeah, as I understand myself, my faith in Krishna consciousness, reshaping my faith in Krishna consciousness to come to this truth that those who are resolute in purpose, their aim is one. Prabhupada says so beautifully in the purport that a strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to highest perfection of life is called Vyavasatmika intelligence. I feel this. I felt this genuinely in Bhaktivinode Thakur's example, as you spoke so beautifully today. Very empowering. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Vilas Manjari. Yeah, this point about, I'm thinking even if you go back, see Prahlad Maharaj, whose son is he? He's the son of a great demon, Hiranyakashipu, right? And Prahlad belongs to the demoniac family, but still he is the greatest of the devotees in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So it is not about the DNA again. It's actually what he heard in the womb by Narad Muni. So again, there is Diksha connection there. Once we have a guru, when we have a proper guru, we are saved. We may have a great father, but we may not be helped by it. But by surrendering to guru, we can have sadgati, means proper progress. And then we can also think of Ritrasura. He's also a great demon, right? And he's known as the greatest of devotees. And he was fighting against Indra. He was telling Indra, hey, come on, get your act together, fight, kill me. He was, and Vritrasura is such a ferocious demon, but still he's the greatest. So it's not about the birth, that's the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. And Kunti Devi's prayers, even after 5,000 years, we're still studying Kunti Devi's prayers. So it is not about female, male, Rakshasa, not Rakshasa, which family lineage you come from is more important. This is Bhagavad Dharma is completely Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. It's like completely like Vedyam Vastava Matra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam. All kinds of distinctions are removed. There is no envy, there is no materialistic consideration, and then all the miseries are completely mitigated by this. And even the misery of, oh, I'm in a good family, I'm from not such a good family, or oh, my father is great and therefore I'm great. It doesn't work like that. It's not. This process of Krishna consciousness is about bhakti, it's about bhava, it's about bhavagrahi janardana, it's about pleasing the Lord who is after our devotion, right? Ksherabdi Shayana Hariye Ninage Bekaite no Gokulada Benne. So Krishna is coming down to earth to steal butter. It's not that he doesn't have butter in spiritual world. He owns the ocean of butter. But he comes here to steal our emotions, our hearts. It has nothing to do with our family lineage or rich or poor, or what's that verse Kunti Devi speaks, right? Aishwarya, what's that? Janma Aishwarya Shruta Shribir. So sometimes all these things, being very good family, being very wealthy, being very well educated, all these things can actually be an obstacle. It can actually be an obstacle. But one thing is enough. What did Prabhupada say one time? There was a disciple who said, oh, Srila Prabhupada, what great fortune we did, to have all this opulence that we have. And Prabhupada said, you did nothing. I did everything for you. So we have done nothing to deserve all this. It's only a causeless mercy of Guru. So Guru is our father. And therefore, if you want to be empowered, nothing is impossible. Krishna can empower you through the Guru. So that Guru Vina Gulamanaguvatanaka Doreyadanna Mukhuti Paripari Shastrava Nekava Nodi Virthavayitu Bhukuti. So you can study all scriptures, you can go all holy places, you can memorize all scriptures. Does not matter. We will not get even a tinge of spiritual advancement until we become the servants of the spiritual master and dedicate. And that was Bhaktivinode Thakur's example. That was Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's example. And that was Srila Prabhupada as well. Following the instructions of the spiritual master against all odds. And nothing stops us from following the instructions of the spiritual master. Then nothing is impossible. But even if we come from a best family, best Brahmana family, we know all the verses, we know everything and everything, it only will be a cause of pride, nothing else. The more we think, oh, I come from a great family, it can help, but that's not the criteria. Our goal is not to become very cultured and very, very nicely behaved and very full of good qualities. No, that is not our goal. Our goal is to remember Krishna always, even if we are Papa Yoni, we are from the sinful Yoni, remember Krishna, to call out to Krishna. That's the goal of life. To attain Krishna Prema. And again, as I said, Ajamil could attain Krishna Prema. Demons could attain Krishna Prema. All the people who born in demoniac families like Vritrasura, Prahlad Maharaj could attain. Even an elephant, Gajendra, could attain Krishna Prema. So why do you think that, what are you sitting and lamenting about? My family is not whatever great. Come on, your family is Srila Prabhupada, it's Bhaktivinode Thakur. You tap into that, you connect to that, and you will get all the mercy, all the empowerment now. So there's we have no reason, no escapism, We are in the most perfect of the sampradayas and parampara. So we just have to be open to be an instrument in their hands. Because the mission will spread. Prithvi te ache jati na jati nagara digram sarvatra prachar hoibe moranam. Mahaprabhu has predicted that in every town and village, this Harinam Sankirtan will happen. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission will spread everywhere. It will happen whether you participate or not. but it's up to us to be part of it and of that glorious mission, or just sit and lament and be lost in materialistic pursuits and right. It's up to us, but the mission is going to happen. There is nothing is going to stop it, but whether we want to be part of it or not, that's a question to ask ourselves. Any last comments, questions? We may wonder, oh, how do I become serious? We just ask Krishna to help us. Just tell him every day, Krishna, please make me an instrument. Please help me. See, Krishna, I was hearing one lecture this morning how as a Supreme Lord, he doesn't need to follow any rules, any regulations, but he follows all the rules and regulations. And he's, he doesn't need to work hard, but he will. In that Rukmini Devi thing, when, Krishna wakes up very early before the morning sunrise, he already wakes up and he does all his duties and everything. So the point is, Krishna doesn't need to do that, but he still does that. So who else can help us? We just go to him and say, Krishna, please help me to not waste time. Please help me to not worry about unnecessary things and to follow my duties and to follow the instructions of my spiritual master. We pray to him humbly and submissively and let the Lord work his magic on us. That is the way. We can't do it with our own determination, We can't. We just let the Lord's will prevail. So since nobody has any questions or comments, we can end here today. Srila Bhaktivinode Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Parampara ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Krishna Connection Sangha ki jai.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.